using media editorials in newspapers coast to coast, grassroots festivals, and the Court of Appeals. To bring the magic and charm of Ashe County to Washington, Mrs. Jones hosted a hoedown in the Capitol, complete with pound cake, cheese, and of course, musicians. Her coalition partner, Billy Moore, painted animals on rocks that she had gotten from the river, and they called them pet rocks. They carried sacks full of these pet rocks to New York and gave them to the power company stockholders. They even sent pet rocks to the senators and congressmen. Mrs. Jones was instrumental in getting the bill introduced by the state legislature and passed by Congress, designating the New as a scenic river. Her tireless efforts in raising regional, state, and national support and meeting with politicians, New York stockholders, and the media was invaluable. And she did all of this while raising a young family. Mrs. Polly Jones, because of your tireless dedication to preserve the New River, the Rendezvous Mountain Chapter Daughters of the American Revolution honor you today and present you with the National Women in American History Award.
We've asked Kelly to do Joanne to put her medal on her. This is her award.
Mine's already cried off.
And Joanne, they were the for us to honor. I've known Polly all my life. Yeah, we have to get the picture too. They are as big as round. Yeah.
All I can say, never down to West Virginia, Stella Anderson and Cindy Gamble.
Here, let's get everybody else.
Y'all not gonna talk about it.
I do.
I do.
Stella Anderson. On the front seat is round. That's okay. That big car. Let's see, Joanne, let's see, you can go get her. We'll do.
Look at Amy.
Look at me.
I'm not a good smiler.
Thank you right now.
That's what the senators.
Here. You're standing.
Smiling, first grade, that guy. Oh my gosh.
We get to you in the store. Looking at looking
That's your coat, but that's.
I
lived on it.
don't know.
That belongs. They're not here. You're just gonna try to get online. I was like, yeah.
We had taken her to house. She would have been. It's worked out. Thank you.
I say that's what you were trying to do. She kind of waited.
So I just want to say once again, congratulations to Andy Cirillo and congratulations to Mrs. Polly Jones. I know Polly was surprised. She had no idea that this was going to happen today. And we are glad that we got to help facilitate that for a very deserving award.
Ms. Jones, do you have any words?
No, it was a 10-year ride.
So you were the one who invented Pet Rocks. You should have trademarked it back then.
Yeah, Billy and I, we got out there on the river in front of our house in our boots and picked up rocks. I can find rocks, but she can paint them. I still have one about that big of some animal with his baby in his arms. We gave them to senators. We carried them in trash bags down New York, Fifth Avenue. They tried to, at the Plaza Hotel, I think it's not that name now, but we lobbied in the Plaza Hotel at American Electric Power's annual meeting. First civilians to ever do that. But Cindy had 2 shares and they had to let us in. And we rented the room, but they tried to throw us out, but they couldn't because we rented the room. Yeah, it was a ride. I met some fabulous people too. There was some, I didn't do it by myself, had a lot of backing. Wallace Carroll, I don't know, you see, these people are all gone. I guess I'm the last one standing. But Wallace Carroll was the editor of the Winston-Salem Journal at that time, and he carried a lot of clout all over the United States. People knew him. If you don't know who I'm talking about, then he was.
And it's Polly Jones' effective, persuasive writing, being the English teacher that she is, that garnered a lot of attention.
Well, I made some impromptu speeches, I think. I made an impromptu at Irish Central High School, but I made one to the state legislature, but I wrote it going down. But I brought tears to the eyes. I wish I had it, but at that time it didn't seem that important. And I'm sure there's not a copy. But yeah. I used to have a box of that stuff and the kids borrowed it and I never did get it all back.
And you had several guests that were watching, and 7 or 8 of your family members were watching via Zoom.
Your children and grandchildren were on.
Oh, really? Well, I didn't know that either.
Yes, they were watching it.
Well, the kids felt like it was their river. But honestly, when they first started, and I'm taking up your time, but when they first came they came and they told people you have to sell your land. You don't have a choice. So these 2 gentlemen in their suits and ties from New York, from North American Electric Power, came up to the gate. I had a fence around my house at that time. And you will sell your land to us. We will put the money in the courthouse and you will go up and get the money. And I hadn't cared up until that point. And when they made me really angry, and I said, no, we'll see about that, not until I've gone through every congressman and everything that's out there available to me, will you do that to me? Because before that, when Ralph would go to the meetings in Virginia, I would read Harlequin romances. And then one of the people I grew up with, I won't call his name, and called my dad again, and said, what kind of a daughter have you raised that she would do this? Because they told me when I said, I was the first secretary of the National Committee for the Near River, and they told me when I took the job of that taxpayer. Making phone calls.
And thank goodness you endured.
Yeah, I could be named too. I did write a paper, and I think that left over Grassy Creek, but I have it at home too. And I have some things moving a lot.
Congratulations. We're very proud of you.
Maybe some of those things you have probably need to go into history museum.
Well, Appalachian got everything we had. Somebody wanted some of it, but I mean, I have pictures of the festival on the new, but Appalachian joined in the fight with us. So Appalachian has most of the things. Now, I was invited personally to the White House to come for the signing in the Rose Garden. And I just had surgery the week before, and I was gonna dope up and go, but you know, who did that?
Well, we appreciate that journey.
We have a pretty river.
Yes, and a lot of people would have lost their homes. It's like many.
It would have changed forever, the landscape of Ashe County.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll get back into the regular business of things. We've got public comment, but nobody signed up under public comment. So we're going to have a new middle school update with Miss Allison Kemp Sullivan. So she's got some pretty big presentations to fill after that one we just had.
Got nothing.
Oh.
Well, I want to personally thank you because I live on the New River too, and my husband has a job because of you, so thank you as well. Good evening to everyone. We are finalizing responses to comments from the health department and are continuing to work through that with Tammy's assistance. Vinoy is also working on their schedule of values that will be submitted, and also to support the cash flow schedules that we will need through the project. They're also assembling shop drawings and submittal logs, and we're expecting over 800 different packages through the project, which is probably as many as I've ever had on the project. In addition to the value engineering list that we talked about last month, we're also creating a list of ongoing a log to track any scope and constructability issues. This would be conflicts in systems and coordination compatibility concerns. And we're also going to be having what's called a VIM meeting this week to start putting together with all the subcontractors, all the systems to try to find clashes in all of the like fire protection systems, HVAC, starting to look at that as well. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So does anybody else have any questions? Everything's kind of under the radar right now.
If the weather were to hold, please Lord, would there be some additional moving of the ground pretty soon, or is that still in the
The next
spring?
contractor that'll mobilize will be JW Hampton, which is the next contractor to mobilize. So they'll be doing all the grading and construction. That when they mobilize, it'll be when the weather breaks. And I mean, I would say probably April, being realistic. So, yeah.
I was hoping for a miracle, but yeah. considering what we've been under now, but as soon as the weather breaks, right?
Right, yes. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. We'll jump into action items for the Board of Education. The first is personnel. You have those in your packet there, on there. Mine doesn't have an attachment.
I'm
So, okay,
on it,
yeah,
on at work.
but,
Let me scroll down.
anybody have any questions for Dr. Cox or Dr. Mofen? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept personnel, agenda list.
All right, so we got a motion from Ms. Ward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Any other questions or comments?
I think we need to remember Walter and Cindy Pugh because Cindy's taking a leave to help take care of Walter. So all of you folks out there that know these people, they're great people. And so remember them.
Very much so. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we've got the minutes. And those are the minutes for the January 13th and 14th for the Board of Education. Any corrections or changes needed for those? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we accept the minutes for January the
13th, 14th.
13th and 14th.
Okay. Do I have a second to Ms. Jones' motion?
I'll second it.
So a second from Ms. Calhoun. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we've got approval for Pro Start competition. This is talking about food. I like it. Yeah.
But you didn't like the dinner, you didn't like the dish.
Well, you can try new things.
Sure. But I'm here on behalf of the culinary competition team from the high school. We're requesting permission to attend North Carolina Central on March 13th and 14th to participate in the North Carolina Pro Start Invitational. I believe the agendas and whatnot's is in the packet there. So they'll leave Thursday, half day, get down, do their check-in and do their required meetings and compete. And a little bit about it, they have 60 minutes to complete a 3-course meal, present that out, and they're graded by their judges and whatnot. But we just, so it is an overnight trip, and then they'll make the trip back on Friday afternoon.
And I would like to add, having been involved in this before, that it is a very tough program because you go in not knowing exactly what you're going to be preparing. You have to understand all the techniques, and then you've got to be creative on top of that, as well as a successful team working combined. So this takes a lot of work, a lot of practice.
Absolutely. And the presentation of the food, it's just amazing when it comes out. So
And this year it's not during spring break.
it is not, it's very ready. It is not. It's next month.
So will Mrs. Sturgill be accompanying the students?
Yes, absolutely. They'll leave, excuse me, they'll leave Thursday around lunch.
Yeah.
Give them time to get to Durham and get checked in. And I believe the agenda says, I believe their check-ins 3 to 4:30, something like that. And then when it's some mandatory team meetings, and we are just participating in the competition on the culinary side. We're not doing a management team this year.
Are all the expenses included?
Yes.
So do we have,
Within the reasonable, we can't buy a student meal, but lodging, registration, and so on, it's all included in that.
I move we approve the overnight trip.
Okay, so I got a motion from Ms. Ward. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, second from Ms. Calhoun. Any other questions or comments?
How many's going?
Well, there's 5 and 2 adults,
That's good.
3 young men and 2 females, I believe. Could be the other way, but it's a young group too. It's a group of some freshmen and sophomores, maybe 1 junior in there. We'll hold me to that, but I believe that's the makeup of it.
That's well done.
Any other questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll just keep up with the trips. Next, we've got the high school band, Carowinds, looks like.
All right, good evening, board. Thank you so much for letting me come out and talk a little about this trip. So I'm asking for approval to take the band out on May 17th and 18th for a performance at Carowinds and to spend that Saturday and Sunday in the park with those students. Itinerary should be attached to your packet, and I'll include the cost last year was around $250 per student. Carowinds has not published their group prices as of when I filled this out, but many fundraising opportunities will be available for students that are unable to go. And any questions about the trip?
Does the students pay for that or we pay?
The students will pay for that, yes.
I noticed that there was nothing there that says how you would provide for hardship cases, but I'm assuming since you mentioned fundraising.
Yes, so we will run at least 2 fundraisers for students to be able to raise money that would go directly towards this trip. And then if there are any students that are still unable to meet that cost, I'm going to go before our band booster board, and we have funds available to help any students that would need additional funds.
How many students?
As of right now, about 35
I
students.
didn't see.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the overnight trip?
I move that we approve the overnight field trip for the band.
Okay, so got a motion from Ms. Ward. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So a second from Ms. Eldred. Any other questions or comments?
We appreciate you being willing to take these kids.
Thank you, and I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to travel and give them a wealth of experiences through band and everything else.
I traveled many eons ago to Carowinds with the band, so I can understand
And I
that.
was band parent for 13 years, so I know thoroughly what you're doing. It's a lot of work.
Our activity buses didn't have air at that time either. Yeah.
Main yard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah. So we've got a motion second on the floor. All those in favor, raise your hand. Like you're going to Carowinds
Thank you so much.
in May, not no time soon. They're closed.
It's coming up.
Yeah. Next, we've got the school mental health support personnel and local report. I see Miss Little coming up.
Good evening. It is time for us to bring before you, per House Bill 75, the local report to our boards of education about school mental health support personnel. And so what we have done, Dr. Moken and myself, we go through and we look at the support positions that are specified to be reported. And we have listed those there for you. And if you'll look, we've tried to list out the person's name and the position. And as well as where we were, where funding was last year, how many positions we had last year versus this year. We're working really, really hard with the loss of ESSER funds and other grant funding opportunities that are kind of expiring to hold those positions level. Thankfully, with the work of Dr. Cox and Amanda Colbert, that we are able to try to work and build those needs. So if you'll notice the school psychologist section, we have remained level. School counselors, we have remained level there. Our school social workers with a couple of grant funded sources are there. One of those is expiring and one has expired. So at this time, we've been able to keep those positions for this school year. We're hoping that we have opportunity to do that again. Our school nurses, we've kept level, but I will say that through App Healthcare, they worked with us. We were losing one nurse position. We had funded that through ESSER funds through COVID. And we kind of went to them and said, we're going to be losing a nurse position and there's really nowhere else that can come from. And they've been wonderful to help us. So our middle school nurse position is completely funded through App Healthcare. So we're very thankful for that partnership. And then our other support staff down through there, you'll just notice how we've pieced that together with grant funds. And at this point, last year, we had 6 support personnel in that group. We are down to 3.5. And those are not positions that we're able to fill due to grant funding, I would love to have those back, but at this point, we do not have the funding for that. Do you have any questions about specific funding sources or the jobs and descriptions?
Do you see any funding coming back for that, those
None of
positions?
that comes from state funding.
It does.
No,
Okay.
I mean, of the ones that we've lost, so no. So we are, of course, always exploring other opportunities, and looking for ways to fund that. But at this point, there's not really been much that's applicable to a rural district, that we would fit for.
Will Mrs. Reeves' job be filled?
It was, the grant, that was paying her expires, at the end of the school year.
And will they be replacing the one at the middle school?
That's a school counselor position and there is, state allotted funds for that. We have not had any qualified applicants, but
Right,
yes.
but you will.
We can replace that one.
Okay.
I think in this day and time, especially what we've been through this school year, is there any way we can find some funds for that mental health position? I think that might be one of the most crucial
I would
positions we
agree
can
with that.
fill.
So we actually did apply and have been requesting updates through a SERVE grant that came directly from, it's called Project SERVE. It's directly from Hurricane Helene relief. And we've applied for everything from an extension for summer school, because we know we've had kids who haven't been in school, and ESSER funds previously allowed us to have pretty robust summer programming. And so we're back to only the minimal amount that we were allowed before. So that was included in it. We included several mental health professionals in that funding, but we have not yet heard. Susan followed up with them, yesterday? Today, yesterday, it all runs together. I guess this is Monday. And we should hear by the end of the week how much funding that we will receive. And then once we figure that out, we'll be able to determine how to utilize it. The problem is that we do lack people going into the field, and especially in rural areas. So we will certainly do what we can to be able to bridge that gap. But we did apply for funding that hopefully we will receive, but we'll keep you posted on that.
And you'll just have to tell me if I can or can't do this, but
Okay.
the email you sent out in regards to the funds that we were getting, that was gonna be filling different positions. Wasn't one of those a counselor?
I don't remember what email that was.
It was, we were gonna be able to provide a nurse, a counselor, and then something else.
One of those federal grants.
Just.
Okay, so we're
Well,
always,
so with
we're
that-
always applying for federal grants. You see that we have a lot of money, some of the ones that were in question recently.
Yeah.
Were in our grants, and you can see we use them for mental health professionals. We're using them for our social workers and our people that can help our children with all of their social emotional needs. And we have, so if we get them, we will use it wisely.
So you're not
For that.
guaranteed to get it.
We're not, unfortunately.
I didn't know
So,
if you've already received it or not.
No.
Since you brought up federal grant,
Mhm.
if there is a situation like we had about a week ago with the freezing of, where does that leave us? Does that affect us?
Tremendously, yes.
Yeah.
And we actually have a document that we will share with the budget, where all these, funds, it's already prepared. It's just a matter of, I don't want anybody to get all confused and excited, since it was, and then it wasn't, and now so I don't like pause, but Amanda and I, the first day that we heard that there was going to be a federal spending freeze, behind the scenes, we were like, oh, this could really hurt Ashe County. But we would be in the same boat as many counties, but we do rely on writing grants to get anything that the state deems as extra. And unfortunately, a lot of our positions that I think are not extra, they are absolutely needed. They're considered extra by the state. So things like social workers and school nurses and even well, some of the counseling positions. I mean, these are the support staff that you see on here, the tab coordinator, the school mental health coordinator through, for the high school. All of those are considered extras. I don't know how we do business without it. I mean, assistant principals are considered extras in the state of North Carolina. We wouldn't qualify for one full assistant principal at any school, according to the state funding formulas. So we're consistently writing grants and asking our county commissioners to support these efforts because I think they do great work. But unfortunately, our funding always falls short at the state level. And we're thankful for everything we get because, you know, they do step up in other ways, but this one is really tough.
Well, I know how hard that some of you work on those grants and we do appreciate that. I guess my concern is there any indication that there may be further cuts or freezes? Because I'm worried about the nutrition program more than anything because it affects.
And that one was never in question. We never saw anything specific to child nutrition. Our child nutrition program, I mean, for what we have, they do a fantastic job, but this year really hurt. I mean, we were, you know, we've missed a lot of school this year and they rely solely upon school meals served. And so unfortunately, I'm hoping that the snow and inclement weather stays away so kids can get to school so that we can be solvent this year in child nutrition. Right now, January, just like last year, January was tough on us, but you know, October was very tough too.
So the grant that we got for breakfast and lunch, is that contingent upon how many kids are being served at that time?
Yes.
It is, our participation is what that goes on. The program, the community eligibility provision, is that the program that you're
Yes,
thinking about?
yes.
Yes, that program does depend on, you know, our directly certified students that participate in lunch. And so, you know, participation is steady when we're here, of course.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we had 8 days in January. So that, yeah, that's $100,000 kit.
But that's a state funded.
It is federal, it's USDA.
Federal.
Yeah,
it's
so
federal.
USDA has not sent out their papers yet. I've not gotten anything from USDA saying that anything is freezing or that anything is changing at this point with them. There's lots of gossip from different,
It's just gossip right now.
yeah, and so, yeah, there's no reason to get excited is what I'm telling myself. And, you know, we'll see what, you know, I'm going to a conference in late February, the No Kid Hungry Act group. And then I've got another one in the 1st of March. So I'm sure by that time there will be information out about what the budget cuts probably will look like. I do expect some, y'all expect something.
So one of the things that we've been seeing, and you guys have milk, I think is one of the things that's on the list. Our prices continue to go up and the reimbursement does not. And it also relies upon students who can pay and students who cannot pay. And so there's that threshold that we are held to. And so, you know, with the hurricane, we do have more students that certify automatically. So for example, a homeless student, unfortunately, we had 35 more because of the hurricane. So those students, when they eat breakfast and lunch, we get reimbursed at a higher rate. But students whose parents don't qualify for the other things, we get reimbursed at a lower rate. And so the hope is it balances out so everybody eats free breakfast and free lunch. But when they're not there to eat, then you know, our kids or the program goes in the hole.
If we do get to that point, is there any way that we could go back to the families that could pay it to where it would save money for the kids that can't afford it?
Well, the problem is it's a completely different lunch program. And so they would have to go back to filling out the free and reduced lunch applications. And so unfortunately, that's another challenge that we see here in families, you know, wanting to fill out the paperwork.
Now, that was for a 5-year grant, correct?
It's a
4-year.
4-year grant.
4-year.
And I can renew it this year and have it a full another 4 years as long as nothing is paused and nothing has changed. Yeah, and that is one of the programs that some of the gossip is around, is the CEP program.
And we can end it
Increase their
anytime.
level, yeah, we can go back to regular National School Lunch Program, which is the free and reduced applications.
And that is something that could be considered. I know that, anyway, I would like to have a normal year to be able to see what it would be like. But unfortunately, I mean, we did pretty well last year, even with January, it still came pretty close to even. Because we do have a lot of kids that qualify, and we have a lot of families that don't qualify, whose parents are not making very much money, and so it's difficult when you're a young family and providing breakfast and lunch. I think it's a true benefit, because I think the numbers are still low. I mean, when it takes, $120,000 to be able to afford a house, and that would not even be a house in Ashe County. A lot of our families don't make $120,000. And so you're thinking about, families who have young children, they're usually pretty young and young in their careers. They're not making a whole lot. So, a lot to consider in that, and I'd rather children come and be fed personally.
I think families are struggling right now, and that's one thing that they don't have to worry about as we can provide that, so.
It does bring a lot of families a lot of comfort. I've spoken to a lot of people about, knowing that they don't have to worry about if their kid will be able to have a breakfast and a lunch. And so, that's a wonderful thing that our county and our government is allowing us to do. We currently are around 56% countywide, and some schools we are, that's much higher. That's so, and whenever you ask the families to start filling out the applications, that's when, they don't want to do that. They don't want to bring that back in. That's, that CEP takes away shaming. And it's such a wonderful program that I hope that the government just realizes that we need to feed our children. That is one of the biggest school supplies, to feed our brains and to feed our children.
Absolutely.
It's one of the biggest things we can do.
I was a free lunch kid.
And a lot of students won't sign up for lunch if they have to do it that way. They're ashamed to do it.
Exactly.
Especially at the high school level, and that's why it dips.
Yeah.
It dips in high school.
Thank you for what you do, Tammy. I know you're concerned, and we are too. And so is there anything that we can do as a board as far as contacting representatives or other people in charge?
I think maybe we shouldn't overreact first. I think we should wait maybe till I can go to these other meetings and see what the culture and the sound is like at these meetings. And see what turns out, I feel like we should wait at least, through March, maybe, to see what's going on. Cause there's lots of good stuff that's going on in March. We were talking about conferences and things. Right now is when everybody's teaming up to do that kind of stuff, and, Congress is back in session, and people that are, really working on all the rules and the laws for this, they're attentive and,
I guess my concern is, although the courts have decided that they have to fund what has been approved, is further future
for sure.
approvals. So I think we're okay for what has already been approved, but how it's going to affect us later.
Exactly. We have summer school applications getting ready to go out. I'm getting started working on those summer meals and, the bid season. We've got my first renewal, and I've got, flyer, things out already for other renewals. And so it is scary. It's a very scary time. It's a very tedious time. You were talking about a house being 125,000. It's about 225,000 for a month of child nutrition. So, I mean, when you have a month where you are already, down 100,000, then, that's 300,000.
Yeah.
Let's just hope for good weather.
Amen. Let's hope for good weather. We're gonna get
And I'll
9 weeks
throw in
in
there,
straight.
one of our support persons, is paid partially through our McKinney-Vento homeless, identification. We changed that a few years ago, and when we put our school social worker kind of in charge of really identifying students who, qualify for that, automatically they are enrolled into the free lunch program. If they're identified, and our numbers grew almost double, which does elevate our, our grant funding. And so it's one of the ways I'm hoping to help.
And it takes the pressure off of the state and local, when we can do that. And so I think we need to, be able to articulate how we use these funds. And I think we're good stewards of the funds. We use it well.
Don't hear them asking that question.
I agree. I don't hear them asking it, but we are sharing when we can, how we are being good stewards. I mean, I think that we've got, Jamie just finished a grant today that I got notice of that I want to say the reporting, it was a 5-year grant. And just one of the subsets of the information required was 60 written pages of data. So it's a lot of work to oversee these grants so that we can feed children, or so that we can provide support to families as they are navigating just life's crisis. So we do a lot of that here in Ashe County Schools, but it's a lot of work for the people at this level in order to administer.
And I want to see kids, be fed, because I know there's a lot of homes that can't afford it, unfortunately. But is there a lot of food that's being wasted? What I've seen when I go through kids, kids are gonna be kids. I get that. But is there a lot of, I'm just curious.
They are required to put certain things in meals. I mean, there's a lot of regulation around that. So, I don't
Let's
know.
come by sometime and we'll go take a little tour and.
I'd love that.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, there is requirements that has to be followed and, not every kid's gonna want to eat carrots every day, right?
Right.
And that's very much offered.
And that's the thing, you can get food that actually tastes good.
So I asked about that one day. I'm like, what is the orange color thing? And of
Red
course,
orange, you have to have so much red orange
every week. And so I thought, okay, how many carrots I'm like, what else is orange besides an orange, right? That orange doesn't count because it's not a vegetable or, oh, it does. Okay. So oranges and carrots, I guess we eat lots of oranges and carrots.
I'll get with you.
Yellow is different.
I'd like to share just a little story that might show what the impact is. I was doing a 4th grade interim, and there was a little boy who came in just totally upset. And I said, what's wrong? What's wrong? He said, my mama lost her job and we don't have any food in the house. And he was certain that they were going to starve to death before they got food in the house. And, his learning at that point was gone. I mean, what I spent most of the time with doing was consoling him and assuring him if I had to take him to the grocery store myself, that he would have food that night for the house. And Mom, fortunately, was just changing jobs and there was a gap. But there are many of our students who don't know where their next meal might be coming from. And so I'm very thankful for these kinds of programs. And we were able to reassure him, but as far as his learning was going, that's not going to happen until we take care of those needs. And
The folks on this list are the folks that are gonna make sure that child has a bag to go home, and then the backpack program, and we'll make sure we take it to the home if they can't get there, so.
And they do.
And we do appreciate that. And so, but he didn't know that.
That's right. But once you know, then we know. We'll take care of it.
Absolutely.
Well, we have several children in our church that we make sure we get every Sunday morning, and my sister makes biscuits and sausage, or she buys them, she don't make them herself, but we make sure those children. The pastor goes and picks them up, and we make sure they have breakfast every Sunday morning, and they come to church on Sunday morning, and they are very, very, very hungry. So I don't know, I'm hoping that they're eating lunch at school.
Every child can have free breakfast and free lunch And then we have several backpack ministries here in Ashe County that provide, 100 kids or more, as many that need it, sometimes at each school, bags of groceries to take home of a weekend so that they don't have to go hungry. Your brother runs one of those organizations.
I'm going to circle us back around to mental health for Miss Little here. We've got a little more food to talk about, milk especially here in a little bit.
Any
on there.
questions?
So, yeah. So you're in the process of looking at grants to fund those
Always.
-2.5. I don't know how you make a half a person, but they do those in those reports.
We're successful with good fits for our county, but we're looking.
Well, do I have a motion to approve the school mental health support personnel report?
I make a motion, we accept this report.
Got a motion from Ms. Elders. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Ms. Jones. Any other questions or comments?
And thank you for taking the time to discuss this.
So good discussion. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, motion carries. Thank you so much. Speaking of numbers, we've got budget work session dates to look at. I see Ms. Cold Iron coming up.
And this one, the earlier the better. So we've given you some suggested dates and we'll need about half a day because it'll take that long to talk about our budget.
So you're good all of those days.
I looked at my calendar. I'm good at the middle three.
So you said 6, 7, and 10.
Mhm.
I would rather not meet on a Friday if we can. But I will, if we have to, but isn't that
The sixth
Yes,
is,
the 10th is a Monday, the 6th is a Thursday,
so the sixth would
Okay.
7th is the Friday.
my calendar is not scooching over.
The 6th would be good for me.
Don't have a problem on the 6th. Do you have any, do you have any problems with the date? No?
We can do the 6th.
So if we need a half a day, do you want to do like at 10 o'clock and do over lunch and finish early afternoon, or would you prefer
Oh,
that?
yeah, you need to feed us if we're coming in for that.
We'll feed you.
6th, okay.
Yeah, the 6th is fine. I was,
Let's do it early.
I've got some things going on, but I'm gonna schedule around whatever date we decided to do
Okay, so let's,
later in the month.
March 6th, sounds like a good day. Is that time frame Dr. Cox said amenable to everybody?
We do like 10 o'clock,
10 a.m. Where we'll be
right here, right in here.
10 o'clock.
That gives you time to get up and get here. And then we'll feed you lunch.
So 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock. Sounds good. That's not Friday, is it?
It's a Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
So how much time should we allow for that? Did you say 4 hours? 5 hours?
10
10 to 2.
10 or 3, depending on the.
Right now, the requests are just now starting to come in. So
So I can mentally prepare for it. Like, what will we do? Like,
we'll go through each director and principal and after that director's request. So what I'm gonna take to the commissioners
okay.
for a request to them.
Do you need a motion for that or?
Yeah, well,
The meeting outside of the calendar.
I mean, yeah,
that be-
probably. I mean, it would be great if you would, we'll have the regular meeting on the 3rd, and then that's that Monday, and then the 6th is that Thursday, so that's a full week
Okay.
for you
So
all.
do I have a motion to approve March 6th at 10 a.m. at the annex for the budget?
I move that we approve March 6th for a budget work session.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Elders, second. Any other questions, comments?
Is headache medicine included?
We've always got some headache medicine.
Always. Just in case I run out.
All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, we're on your calendar.
You're next.
Next, so let's just keep talking numbers. Let's audit our contract.
We're presenting the 2024-25 auditor contract, and we're requesting to contract with Anderson, Smith and White. They've done our audit probably 10 years, 10, 11 years, I guess. You all have met Ms. Dennison as she comes and presents.
Brings us a novel.
She does bring in home.
Yeah.
Has their price changed any?
It's not, they've stayed consistent for a long time.
Good.
Has there been any consideration about changing auditors? I was reading an article the other day that it was good for entities, and it may not be our entity to change every 5 or so years.
So
Or
they are,
I'm not complaining about
no,
them.
they're specialized in public school audits.
Mhm.
And they have 85 of the 115 districts. What they do so that they don't get, you don't ever want your auditors to be too familiar with your staff, so they rotate their staff out, and like we'll have, it's usually 1 or 2 different ones each time, they come in. You'll have one that's been consistent, because you don't want all of you have teaching everything all over again, but, they do a good job of rotating out.
I would imagine there's not many to choose from, are there? I mean, for the specific, right? I mean, you can find auditors for anything, but I figure this is so
There's
specific.
like 9 other counties that have maybe local people, but what we found with that is they tend to lean more toward the local government rules than the public school rules. So it really doesn't benefit us.
I don't know who it is. Are they located here in the county or are they outside?
They're outside of county. They have several offices. They have one in Elon and one down on the east, but I can't remember the city that one on the east is in.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve Anderson, Smith and Like as the auditor.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve Anderson, Smith and White.
I have a motion from Ms. Eldridge. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Jones. Any other questions, comments? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's fine. I'm just glad that they haven't gone up on the process like everybody else. And everything else.
That's rare.
Yeah.
The prices are staying.
Well, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Motion carried.
Thank you, appreciate it.
We're just having a run of numbers. So next, we've got the new middle school financing.
So, as you all know, our middle school has been, financed. And I think, through the LGC, they were very, they were kind to us, I guess you could say, and we were attractive as a, entity because, the county is in great shape financially. So what we need is a motion, according to Fred, for the financing of the new middle school. And of course, the documents that have already been signed by Josh and I, which was allowed by a previous board motion last June. It includes what is written here. So if someone would like to give that motion in a second, we will be in compliance.
I move
Okay,
that we accept and approve the payment for the middle school.
you don't care, it's in the quotes on there. You see it?
I move that
There
the
you
Board
go.
of Education approve and ratify the deed of subordination and the certificate of Ashe County Schools submitted to bond council on or about January 30th, 2025, in conjunction with the financing of the Ashe County Middle School project.
That's what I knew you meant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
So do I have a second to that? And the second to Ms. Ward's motion does not have to repeat it again. No.
I'll second it, don't I?
Okay, all right. So we've got a second from Ms. Calhoun. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries.
I try to make it easy by putting it in there.
Thank you.
The attorneys like those words.
They do.
Yes.
On there. Next, we've got the child nutrition milk renewal for 25-26 already.
You have this coming for you to ask if we can go ahead and renew the pet milk for the 25-26 school year. The process is not really changing that much. It varies. It's like 2%, and that and change monthly. And that's part of the contract that we've signed before, so that it will vary that much.
So milk's not scarce like eggs right now?
Not right now, you know, when we were scarce, it was the cartons that was scarce and not the milk itself. So.
Okay.
It's always something.
Yep.
I make a motion that we approve this request.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Eldred. Do I have a second to the motion?
I second.
All right, I've got two, so we're good to go there. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. I had seconds from Ms. Ward and Ms. Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've got one of the new items added to the agenda, and that is the refresh of Westwood and Blue Ridge instructional devices. I think we touched on it a little bit to add it to the agenda. I see Ms. Walker back there.
So this was a late addition, and I appreciate you entertaining and adding it to the board and approval process. Every 3 years, we do try to refresh our devices for our teachers. We want to make sure they have devices that work very well in their classrooms to enhance the instructional program. And it is time for 2 of our schools. We have those, all of them kind of spread out over a 3-year period, so it doesn't all hit at one time. And so it's time that we refresh those devices for Blue Ridge and Westwood. And we looked at 3 different quotes, and you've got those in your notes. And Dell was the one we decided to go with. Our teachers like those really well, and our technicians like that device very well. It does a good job. It's held up well.
Is this just for the teachers?
Yes.
And I thank you for thinking about looking ahead regarding the tariff potential impact.
Yeah, we weren't going to go to March, but I was afraid it possibly may not, but it worth a shot just to go ahead.
It's a
The
good
money's
idea.
sitting there.
And we have the quotes.
Yeah.
They just came in recently.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the refresh?
I make a motion.
All right. Thank you. I have a motion from Ms. Calhoun. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Any other questions or comments? None, all those in favor, raise your hand. You're good to go. Next, another item added to the agenda was the weather waiver resolution. I had to work on that one. If it had one more W, I'd have more time. That's right. That's right.
Well, as you all are aware, Ashe County, along with several other counties, mainly along the mountainside here in the west and northwest, it is eligible each year for a weather waiver because we have at least, 8 days out every
6 out of 10.
6 out of 10 years. So we meet that clearly. In fact, our average number of days missed, not including this year, so this is not even in there. Our average number of days out of school due to weather is 11. This year we'll change that to probably closer to 14 with the number, because you do it over 10 years. And they'll drop one number off and another, then the new one will come on. And we've missed quite a few days due to inclement weather this year when you consider the hurricane and the weather. Our in-person days is included in the same number as our remote learning days for instruction. And we all know that remote learning days are not the same as our in-person days. But they are a way it's a means to an end sometimes, and it is important to be able to have continuity. I'd rather have eyes on children and a few hours of instruction when you could go easily a full month without seeing children. And that's a long time to backslide if you're not reading and doing math and other things at home, and without a teacher instructing. So this resolution was drafted alongside several superintendents who felt like we might be able to ask for an additional week if we're missing 11 days on average every year for winter weather. Right now, our winter weather only gives us 5 days addition. So adding another week would give us 10 days, which is much closer to that weather. So if we were able to start in August, when we traditionally have better weather, then it would help us with a lot more ability to navigate our winters in Ashe County. So this resolution essentially says, whereas Ashe County Schools acknowledges that student learning loss occurred from loss of instructional time due to Hurricane Helene, whereas Ashe County Schools has historically faced significant instructional disruptions due to inclement weather, missing an average of 11 school days per year over the past decade, not including the current school year, and whereas as of February 3rd, 2025, Ashe County Schools has experienced a total of 42 days without in-person instruction this year, including 31 school closures and 11 remote learning days. And of course, that doesn't include all the days we've had delays and early releases. Whereas the Ashe County Board of Education recognizes that in-person learning is critical for student achievement and that minimizing future loss of instructional time due to inclement weather is essential. And whereas the Ashe County Schools currently receives a 1-week weather waiver for the school calendar start date, which has proven insufficient to provide the instructional days and hours necessary to meet student academic needs. And whereas a 2-week weather waiver for the school calendar start date will allow Ashe County Schools to begin the academic year earlier, thereby increasing flexibility in scheduling and reducing the negative impact of weather-related closures on student learning. Now therefore it be resolved that the Ashe County Board of Education formally requests authorization for a 2-week weather waiver for the calendar start date for Ashe County Schools to ensure a more effective and reliable academic schedule for students. So essentially what I'm requesting is that we be is for your support to bring this to our General Assembly so that rather than a 1-week weather waiver, we are requesting a 2-week weather waiver, which would therefore make sense considering we already have 11 days every year. So that's essentially a little over 2 weeks, which matches the time that we're requesting for the weather waiver.
I have a question.
Yes.
In
And we can change anything. I just kind of threw it together.
well, what I'm looking at is the 5th and 6th, whereas you read 1-week weather waiver, but weather is not in either that one or in the next
Oh,
one.
did I?
Which way do you prefer it?
I should probably add weather waiver because that's essentially what we're asking for.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
I read it, but clearly I was seeing it and it wasn't there, right? That's what you get when you write something.
Exactly.
I have a question.
Yes.
Been serving on the calendar committee for several years and we were meeting the other day. And is there any way we could ever table year-round school? Because I really think that would help the children. And it would help students. It would help parents. Is there any way we could ever table that and talk about that? Because a lot of people mentioned it the other night, is the reason I'm bringing it up. Several mentioned it, so I was just throwing it out there.
So we had, as you know, and we have this on here as a discussion, if you want to bring it up, under the calendar committee. We have a place where we can do that here in a little bit and discuss it.
Okay, perfect.
But essentially, we've talked about doing a different type of calendar. That calendar is traditionally not one that's conducive for high school. That's why around the state, you see a lot of elementary schools and a lot of academies in schools having the year-round school. And what we would consider if we were to do a year-round school, essentially we would have to go to school during each of the 12 months. So a lot of people think of a year-round school as having, an extended time beforehand and afterward, but there are rules around it. And Earl can probably speak to this because we were looking at this for the last couple of weeks.
And we've looked at that. And is there one model that fits all? The answer is no. Is there legislative guidance on that? There's suggestions. And in a lot of schools where we've done our research, as we've talked about there, so that everyone else in the board can hear, most of the schools, what we see is it works well in schools where schools are, the enrollment is larger than the school. So they track kids on five, for example, 5 tracks, and every 9 weeks, one track stays out. And so the school's built for 1,200 kids and there's 1,500. And so they have like 300, 400 kids that rotate throughout the year of having that track. Some school districts, I think, they'll talk about a year-round school, and really it's just defiance of the start date. I won't mention the name specifically, but there's some that start in 1st of August and they don't attend in July. They go August and they're out before Memorial Day or right around Memorial Day. Basically, they just add 2 weeks to their school year at the beginning and go from there. There's some suggestions that DPI recommends, and that would be something along the lines of 9 weeks in session and 2 weeks out. And 9 weeks in session, 2 weeks out.
So
And
what,
then wrapping that up.
so what happens like what we've done in January, where if we were supposed to have 9 weeks in, but 2 weeks out, we have not been able to plan that 2 weeks
Correct.
because of the weather, and I'm afraid, and knock on wood, I'm afraid that we're not out of the weather situation yet. We had a huge 26-inch snow in April one year. We had to reschedule the prom. I don't know, Dustin, were you in during that time period? We had to readjust. What'd you say? I didn't hear.
I said I might have been going to the prom. I don't think
That's what I meant. We had, so that's a concern that I throw out there, that if we can't plan like Raleigh Durham or some of these other
And
places
that's where
that
we're
have.
seeing most of, that's where I'll say, there's a couple of us researched. And Wade County, they have a lot of elementaries, and as Dr. Cox mentioned, different academies, acceleration academies, or a specific academy, and that works well there. To find, and then a lot of the times it isn't an entire county. It would be one school, for example. I think it's Lee County, they have one elementary, and it's kind of an accelerated elementary, and they do a year round, and everyone else in the district does a traditional calendar.
And I think one of the bigger struggles, as she mentioned, the high schools, is we have so many students doing dual enrollment with the community colleges, which would create havoc with schedules. We also have sports conferences that would be more difficult to schedule when we're the odd school out in our area. So for those reasons, I don't see it happening anytime soon unless there's some big changes.
In fact, I wanted to ask Dr. Marsh if this resolution that we're discussing right now, if that would help us with the scheduling with Brooks Community College, because I know we had to do a two-day difference this year to start.
No, we started the same, but no, 2 day difference this year.
2 day difference this
Yeah.
year. Would that help alleviate some of those kids that do the dual enrollment, be able to start on time?
It certainly would. One of the things that we like to see, especially for our high school students, is that they start at their high school program before they begin taking classes with us. That gives them to acclimate a little bit to the school year, to kind of figure out what that's going to look like, all IE blocks, whatever it happens to be. So if we can get our kids started in their high school program and then add in their CCB courses with us, that would certainly be most beneficial on my end.
Can I chime in on that too, real quick?
Go ahead.
One thing that we were attempted to do this January, but weather didn't allow us to, which would also help with this 2 weeks, is some meet and greets with the Wilkes faculty, which would be great for early college and CCP students, where they'd be able to meet some of their Wilkes instructors, build those relationships early before they even start class. So you've got textbooks, you've got orientations, lots of things that we could do ahead of them starting their courses to really set them up to be successful and get those supports in place.
So how many of our kids drop out of the Wilkes program after the semester has started?
completely.
I see what Lindsay is saying, would help us, Mrs. Williams, excuse me. I see that helping, kids to decide, well, hey, this is a good plan for me, or this is not a good plan for me, that, but do we have a lot that drop?
So prior to the hurricane, look.
Yeah.
Let's not-
We actually had our CCP withdrawal rate less than 6%. So 94% of the kids that started in a CCP course completed it. And most of those successfully passed the course as well. So our recidivism rate is relatively low for CCP students.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
So you're saying this waiver, this resolution wouldn't hurt you? I mean, it would be a benefit to both, to everybody. Okay. That's what I was hearing. I was just making sure my ears were working.
This allows us also to get a full semester in. I mean, normally our first semester to test in December is shorter than the others, and that is sometimes a barrier. Certainly that would allow us to have more time in the beginning of the year, but it also, for all students, allows us to have more time when we have traditionally less inclement weather. This year obviously is an anomaly. But our winter time is usually late December through the entire month of January, and then, whatever it does in February and March, and maybe hopefully not April. But that additional week would allow us to get 5 full days of school in prior to when we typically have inclement weather. And I think that would be very, very helpful to all kids.
Do you have any idea how successful this
I
resolution?
have no idea. I'm going to take it as soon as you guys approve it. I would have texted them both today, because I have to be in Raleigh-Durham area on Wednesday, and I was just going to stop by since they have a deadline. I think the Senate has a deadline on the 10th, and the House has a deadline on the 17th for any new bills and requests. And so I wanted to make sure, I mean, this is not asking for any money. This is just asking for some compassion for our districts that already get hit hard from the weather.
And as far as you know, we're not the only district looking.
Well, I know we're not, there's several districts because we've passed it. We've edited some versions of this and have passed it around. And I know there's some others that would probably join in if we were to ask, but I didn't want to put it out there too much until I ask for your blessing.
Do we have any other questions on the waiver? Do I have a motion to approve the weather waiver resolution?
I move we approve the weather waiver resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. That's hard. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Eldred. Do we have any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries.
Thank you.
We'll talk, Mr. Pennington, a little bit more, a little bit later in calendar. Last item under action we have is the new, let me rephrase that, the current middle school new roof.
Correct.
Or repair. And that was an addendum added on there.
So as you know, for the last almost year, so 11 months ago, you all gave an approval for us to, in joint with our county commissioners, to put a new roof on the old middle school because it needs one. It's needed one for probably 10 years or so. And we had begun that process. We had already had at least one quote of roughly $1 million to be able to do that. That's where we came up with the funding to do, kind of split it with the commissioners, and everybody was all on board. We had been working with and requesting some support through NCDPI. And you can see the attached letter that we received last week. I actually got it on the 31st. We finally made some progress. The DPI had been here a few times. They picked up some stuff on January 16th and then told us that they could not do it because it was going to be over $500,000. So Amanda and I pivoted right away when we got that information and put together an RFQ draft. And we've since this morning, talked with, our board attorney, Fred Johnson, and he is sending us a document that we can publish in the paper. He warned that it is an aggressive timeline. I said, we know, but we don't have time. It's been a long time. We're very disappointed to hear that, this information, and had we known this before, we would have gone in a very different direction. Anyway, so, we do have some information on people who we can send it to directly, that might be able to do this work. And essentially, we're looking for somebody who can design and do the work, because that's going to be the most efficient. It does still have to go to NCDPI for approval, and we do not know what that timeline is. I did leave a message for Mr. Lawson this morning. I had not heard back yet, from him, and, I left him my cell phone number so that he would have it. But the, DPI approval times are what they are. And I have no idea what that would take for a roof project. But as you can see by his letter, it is going to need a full, in his opinion, replacement, as I think we surmised to begin with.
So you're seeking permission for request for qualifications?
Correct.
Contractors or architects?
Correct. And so we would, we want to get that done as soon as possible, so somebody can actually do the work. We put an aggressive timeline on there, and hopefully they can, design it and, finish the design, have the approvals done, and start the work by June 9th, which is very aggressive.
I found this letter to be very surprising, since that we have been waiting on Mr. Lawson for a long time. And it was my understanding, and maybe it was a wrong understanding, that we were required to go through this process with him before we could enter any other bids. Is that true? And why did we not know? We knew that it was going to cost over $1 million a long time ago. So why all of a sudden this $500,000 construction limit?
No idea.
I think he thought that he might, for the modified plan, that wouldn't be so expensive. It would be under the $500,000. Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct. Yeah.
And not, that's a lot of money for a building we're not gonna be in 3 more years.
Well, we have students that deserve better than what I saw today. I went by there today and I looked at some of that stuff. We've got drips everywhere. We've got tiling that has been replaced recently that needs to be replaced again. It's just
It's terrible.
And I think Josh and I went to a meeting, over 3 years ago with the county commissioners, and nothing has progressed since that point. And I find this totally depressing and disappointing that we have students who have been in this building forever, and we have not fixed what the problem is. And, it doesn't matter when we get the new school done, in my opinion. It matters that those students are sitting there, and even more importantly, they're only there 2 years. We've got staff people who've been there several years with this thing, and it's getting worse instead of better. And I find that totally unacceptable
We agree.
for Ashe County schools. So,
The DPI still has to approve it. I mean, they still have to go through all the approvals, and typically in a project, it's my understanding that Mr. Lawson was going to design it. I mean, even as late as the 16th, he said he was going to, correct? Anthony? Even as late as the 16th, he said he was going to design the project.
Yes, I fully expected when he left here with the blueprints that the next steps would be a design and a bid. And I was shocked to learn that he brought the plans back and he said, we can't do this because of the limit. And we had talked about the limit in the past. And he had said, it's not an exact quote, it was pretty close, that he said, he asked me the question, he said, is there a section of that roof that's much worse than the others? And I said, there is. The middle, the office area, that includes the entire middle of the building, not the gym and not the upper classrooms that used to be the agriculture building, I forget what they should call now, sorry. But anyway, he said, you know, maybe we can do something like that, get a design and re-roof a big chunk of it. He said, I'm not sure. I'll let you know when I get the plan and get to work on it. And I said, well, at that point, we'll bring it before the powers that be and see how it goes, but I was as shocked as anybody in this room for him to just bring back the plans and say, we can't do this. There, and I did make him to understand in person that the county is very vested in this project and that the commissioners had allocated $500,000 to help. And so I really don't see where that, to me, that didn't exceed the DPI amount. If you take into account $500,000 to us, the county paying for half, it seemed like it was gonna be something that would go to me. And I was very shocked for him to say, we're not gonna proceed with this. I suggest you get a, well, you've read the paper, I suggest you get a roof designer, so.
But we have been waiting how long for him to come
Please.
and did we have to wait on him or did we have other options?
I don't know the rules of that. That's kind of over my head. But
Because I talked to him in May, I believe it was, and he said we could hire anybody we wanted to do this project. And so, but we felt like he was good enough to wait on, and then he said he would be here next. Well, that was in May.
Yeah.
We didn't see him till when?
January.
We could have already had some
Yeah.
other stuff going on this thing, and I'm very frustrated.
And the many times I called him, as you all know, I have stood in this very room and said, I talked to him, he says, we're 3 jobs out, and he says, we're next, he says, it's soon. Those were actual conversations that I had with the man.
I'm not blaming you, Anthony. I'm just
Yeah, I know.
frustrated that we,
I just assumed that it would happen, and especially when he came to get the plans, I thought, well, it's gonna be on now. And I actually told him that that was one thing I hoped to accomplish, is to at least get that started.
well, yeah, every time that
Yeah.
it freezes and thaws, we
Yeah.
have more damage to that building and to those folks. And I know it's been said that we don't have mold in that building, but I swear I thought I saw some stuff that looked like mold in that building today. Of course, I didn't come up there and take a sample or do any of that, but just the appearance of it seems like that we really have issues that need to be addressed immediately there. And,
I can walk to it, Smith.
yeah, you can,
It's
and
got my.
We've had it tested by professionals twice, now, that we do not have any of that mold.
I know that's what they say, but, you know, a 7th grade child, it is the perception too that's bothering me because I had a 7th grade kid that I'm, familiar with, and she came up, she said, if you go downstairs you'll find the mold. And I didn't even go downstairs today, but I was very, dismayed by the fact that it's progressing rapidly now. And honestly, if we don't get something done, we might as well provide life preservers and boats in that building. So, I mean, buckets everywhere, and that's a hazard in itself to have buckets that are in the hallways. For middle school kids, they're not looking for obstructions in when they're going from class to class, and that's a good place over there. So, you know, what other delays are there going to be before we get these kids in a building that they deserve to go to school in, and our staff deserves to conduct their business there and not have to worry about mold and mildew and whatever else is in that building. You can smell it. You're exactly right. When you go in that building, it's different. And,
Regardless of what has happened, we have to approve going forward in this new direction. So I move that we go forward with getting this done as promptly and as quickly as you can, please.
Okay, could I ask a question?
Wait just a second. She made a motion.
Yes.
Let me have a second to the motion.
Second.
And- Okay, Ms. Calhoun seconded the motion. Okay, so now, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I wanted to make a motion. I wanted to make a comment for the main motion. That's okay. That last paragraph down there, we recommend securing a roofing design professional who can reevaluate the facility's roofing needs. Does that mean we can hire anybody we want to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what this is for, to do an RFQ, so
So
that we
we
can
can-
get whomever we want to do this, but it'll still have to go to DPI for approvals. So when he said he could do it, that would be the easiest way out, and it should have been the quickest way out as well.
But you have to put this out for,
We have to put this out for an RFQ so that we can get somebody who's qualified to do this work. And then they'll have to go through the process of going through DPI to get the actual approval. So we still have to go through DPI regardless.
Do we,
So no one's qualified to do this kind of work?
I'm sorry, but
No one is really qualified to do this?
but we have to put it out. We can't just,
you can't, yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. You can't just pick
Well, I
a
know,
company, but you have to put it out.
you put it up, and I mean,
Correct.
would they be one of the people, companies that would be qualified to
If
do
they
it?
decided to put a
If they wanted
RFQ,
to.
right?
do we have interest that we know of already? Because we have had issues with finding enough folks to do the RFQs so that we can proceed.
We will have to put this in the Winston-Salem Journal as well as the local paper. And be able to put it out through whatever that website is. There's a state website that goes directly to contractors that do this kind of work. And we'll also send it to some people that we know do this work as recommended by our board attorney.
We still have to wait on this person.
Eventually, yes,
Do we have to have three?
yes. Because of the.
If we don't have three?
Yeah, really, yeah.
Again,
And then if you don't have three that time.
So this
you can
could
go
be
with
like the never ending story that we're all
Unfortunately.
familiar with,
but just for two times,
Just
two times,
times.
just two times.
two times.
And after that, we can take bids from whomever has shown the
And
interest.
it's because of the price. It's, because.
But now if you get three the first time,
You're good.
you're good.
Yeah, I
So that cuts
understand
out a-
that, but
that cuts out a
I'm a
step.
little bit concerned because I can remember some pool repair. I can remember some other roofing repair that we've had trouble getting folks that we had to really actively try to get folks interested in presenting an RFQ for us to do that. And with this hurricane stuff going on, that the repair stuff going on, I'm very concerned. And so, yeah, everybody, I mean, it's hard to
Everybody's
get
covered up.
somebody. We're covered up, they're covered up. So
But the sooner we do this, the
Yeah,
sooner they.
correct.
All right.
Let's
So-
move on
doing
for the
this,
vote.
but
Yes.
I'm really,
I debated it.
Yeah, we're too, very.
I've had a call for the vote, from board members, so, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Okay, let's get started.
Let's go.
can we expect a report as soon as something happens on this?
As soon as I get the stuff from Fred, you'll get to see it. So we talked this morning and we sent him a draft, so I don't see that it's gonna be too long. He realizes the timeline.
Updates, discussion items and considerations. Do we have anything more on the calendar that you need? I know we went into a little bit more.
I know, I'm
So
sorry.
that's okay. We had to talk about it anyway.
So Earl, do you want to share the update of where we are with the calendar committee and
Absolutely.
some of the work that's been done so far?
Find my page, here we go. Roof conversation's hard to follow.
Yeah, I know. We've had several of those.
I was in the building for a while and
You need to make it interesting.
I agree. So calendar development, we've had two great meetings. One was on Zoom and we went in and we looked at the requirements and we looked at the priorities and we set some priorities for our district and we shared out some templates and we came back in this room on January 23rd, and it was a rather lengthy meeting, but we walked out with two really good templates for calendars. Those are out now in the community for comment. There's a Google form that accompanies two drafts, calendars, two option A, option B. And this morning I was trying to check my phone to see what the number was, but we had almost almost 300 comments back, and the survey was real simple. It was basically which calendar do you like? What's the school that you're representing? And then what's your role? Because I think it's important to break that down to look at, is it, you know, how are parents feeling? How are students, how are teachers and whatnot, feeling across the region with that. That will run through Sunday, and then we will take that data that we gather, we'll come back on February 11th. And we'll look at that and decide if we need to take one of the other calendars and adjust. And then when we have the March 3 board meeting, we'll bring the two drafts and we'll make a suggestion or recommendation and move in there. Yeah, of course, we may want to hold on to and I'm not even going to try to say the waiver, to see if that might be something that's.
Weather waiver.
Yeah, that word. I know better. But anyway, if I may now, I like the one extra week. That makes a tremendous difference. That can make a tremendous difference. I mean, what if we looked at a year round, and what if we have our 2 weeks and it's beautiful weather and it's December, and we come back January and we try to start school and it's another 2 weeks, and we're sitting kind of in the same pond that we're in right now. So it's, and honestly, if the board wants us to pursue that, then I think that's something we can pursue, but I don't think it's something we can do in a month. I think that's something that we want a separate group of folks to really dig down and do some deep study on that.
It would take it like a year or two.
It could take a while. It could take a while with that. But so that's kind of where we are with the 25-26 calendar. So you want to have any questions, or? It's a great group. I appreciate it. It's teachers, administrators, and
We don't have one of those options as starting school before the state legislature lets us, right?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. And I'm hoping that 2-week waiver, I hope we can, I know we need to get the calendar in there, but at the same time, if there's an option for that 2-week waiver, I think that would.
It's an additional week to the waiver we already
But
received.
it's a 2-week waiver. We already have the one.
Right.
So that would give us a lot more flexibility. So I'm hoping that we can hear from that in a timely manner, that we can get that before we have to decide about which calendar that is most appropriate for us for next year.
Dr. Cox, correct me, I mean, if we approve a calendar and we get the waiver,
You can change it.
we can come back in
Yeah.
April and change it. Some folks do their school calendars 2 years at a time. Some folks already have the 25-26 that was approved back. It's different with each district. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that, but.
And if we have any movement before then, certainly you'll know about it.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. Thank you. Next, we'll move into the pre-K classroom update.
So, since the last board meeting, Terry was able to get all of the approvals for the inspections for the pre-K classroom. So that is a great update. We've been able to post for, not that we have to hire yet, but we've been able to post for a pre-K teacher and an assistant in hopes that this is going to go through and that we'll be able to have students. And then the latest thing, we have childcare centers within our community, and one particular that is struggling right now. And we have met with their director and chair and have offered our support. I think, we do pre-K, we've done special needs. We've got the expertise of Terry right in that same building. I think that they've got some choices to make, but we don't want any child to go without childcare, and especially pre-K. And certainly our pre-K kids, we want to have that consistency for. And so we have, reached out and offered our support. And so if any changes happen, we'll happily take on those children.
Was there an attachment with this?
There was not.
It always helps me to see stuff, like visual learner.
Well, some of this, a lot happened on Friday. a lot happened on Friday. I don't know what it was about Friday, but a lot happened on Friday. And so we've, anyway, we already had an addendum just to give you an update, and we were hoping it would be a little bit different than the one that we have. But we are moving in the right direction to open, a paid pre-K. Right now, if we have spaces, we just needed to get things posted and out there so that when things happen, if things happen, we'll be able to take on children right away.
Any questions?
Hope it happens.
Well, we're well prepared when it does, and then we've also discussed what it would look like in the fall for Blue Ridge. Mitchell's really excited about having a pre-K out at Blue Ridge Elementary School, and I think that would be our next site. So we're making progress on what that could look like. But right now, if something else happens within these other settings, you guys will be the first to know.
Sounds good. We've got next turf and track update. Didn't know. I see Coach Hampton back there, but
Well, actually, this is more Amanda and
Okay.
Coach Hampton. You saw in there, and this was just prior to news that I got from Coach Hampton. Amanda was very wise in being able to put the $2.5 million into a STIF account. Thank you. I said SCIF instead of STIF. Anyway, we have a SCIF grant and a STIF account. Okay. So anyway, all these acronyms, right? But anyway, it allowed us to earn interest on those funds, and normally those funds are held somewhere else and they earn the interest on it, but this particular grant came directly to us. And so that allowed us to earn interest on the funds until the payments were made. And that's what you see in this account history. And then we had some fundraising that went on through our booster club, which raised just over $50,000. And then Brian and I talked Thursday, last Thursday. And go ahead, you can give the good news.
The Booster Club has the funds to pay off the balance. So we have the money. We are not paying them yet because they are not finished. And I've had a discussion with those folks from Geosurfaces. The painting for the track is almost complete. It has to be above 40 degrees for a period of time. So obviously that. He did show up today and plans on finishing by the end of the week. There are some other things that need to be done to the field itself. Just some grooming issues and a few things that I'm being very picky about before they get their final payment. So we do have the money. They have not been paid, and they understand that they will not be paid until everything is to our satisfaction. And I think the last time we met, I told them that, and they have not requested money since. So I think
be very picky.
Yes.
Very picky.
We all be very picky. So, but
Well,
we
and
were
they want to show peace.
yeah, and
They want to show peace.
but very happy that our Booster Club was able to step up and pay off the remaining balance. And also in that meeting, they are buying 80 new hurdles for our track program. And so they have really stepped up, and they've had a great fundraising concession stand business going on through the fall and winter sports, and we're tickled that we're able to provide our track team with new hurdles. So.
Wonderful news. Thank you, Coach Hampton. And a lot of hard work on that. And I know the fundraising committee did a good job with everything. So appreciate everybody's efforts on that. Anybody have any questions or comments for anybody?
I'd like to ask Mr. Hampton, how's the girls softball field? I have a question about that.
Well, right now, we're working on it. We've got to get the fence, one pole that was bent during some wind and when the bleachers went flying over the fence, and we're getting that done. Next week we start on the 12th. So, there is no danger out there right now. They have been doing some workouts, but it will be ready in time for the season.
Do we have a batting cage and a pitching machine? for the softball team?
We do. The batting cage has not been put up yet because of, weather, but we do have those things. And we've ordered extra screens this spring. We ordered about $4,000 worth of screens in practice here for softball last week, so, and they're already here, so.
That would have been up on top of Mount Jefferson if we'd had them last week.
Yeah, they've not had that outside, but they've got it, but they've not taken it out.
Thank you.
I'd like to say before we go, appreciate having our student representatives with us today. They've sat through a few of these meetings on there. Anything you all would like to add? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Definitely work on that roof, because 6 years ago it dripped on me in the gym, so. And I'm sure Mr. Farmer knows a lot about it. He had to stay up there one night because that roof fall.
Why didn't you fix it while you're up there?
That's a good question. May have made it worse.
Maybe we're expecting all that.
Maybe.
So I do want to say that a person had come to me with how he can better get feedback from his fellow peers. And so for the next meeting, we're going to work on a way that he can share some of that information.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Would like to say we've got a couple of folks from our community college, our Ash campus here and from the Wilkes. So Dr. Caleb Marsh spoke earlier, and he's got with him Kristen Macemore from who's usually off the mountain. And she came up this evening. So I wanted to thank you all for good. Now you're driving back in the dark. So I'm sorry. On that.
And our congratulations in order about a certain person going to play tennis at Emory and Henry.
Oh, yes.
We're very proud of you.
Was official signing this week?
I don't have one phone yet.
Okay, all right.
Keep us posted. Anybody have anything else? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
That's your.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
All right, Ms. Jones makes a motion. Do I have a second? All right, I got Ms. Calhoun, Ms. Eldridge, a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, there's about 5 of us. We're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you.